Yeah,
Speaking of
honestly,
ring
the pace is
culture,
going
you
back.
guys see that like LeBron clip that's been going pretty viral
Yep.
about him
Me and
saying
some
that
flex.
ring culture doesn't really matter as much and we put up too much emphasis on it.
He's
And
he's
he's
right
been
though.
getting
He's
hate.
somewhat
He is
right
right, yeah.
because like if you take a look, like people bring up MJ's rings and stuff like that, but it's like then when you bring up Bill Russell's rings to those MJ people, now they're like, oh, rings don't matter. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, but you understand when Bill Russell was in the league, there was like 12 teams. Even when MJ was in the league, it wasn't a full
was
30
less
teams.
teams.
Like we ended up adding four more two more
Yeah.
expansion teams since then. So it's like the competition's not as high. The resources that the kids are getting nowadays aren't as high either. The money wasn't as much, so people weren't investing their lives into basketball. Like there's so many factors that go into it. The way the game is played, the rules, like you can't use ring culture because it's different
Niggas couldn't
eras.
even
Like
double team.
if you want to
Can you
compare
tell me the whole
rings in the
context of
same
this? That's
era,
what he said.
So basically, he was saying that players that don't have rings don't get as much credit, like Steve Nash, Charles Barkley, for their talent, and that we put too much emphasis on ring culture, and that's like the biggest thing, or that's how we rank players in today's NBA is based off them winning rings when it's a team sport and not an individual sport, basically.
yeah.
So
and
he
like I was
is
saying,
of the
like,
opinion that rings should not matter as much, right?
Yeah, exactly.
yes. Yeah, like I was saying, like
That's
going
wrong.
across eras is just hard to compare because if you want to compare a Jokic to Giannis in the same era, I think that's fair. You can compare their rings and their situations, like, but if you're comparing across eras, you just can't do that because the competition different. Sometimes the West is weak, sometimes the East is weak. Like sometimes someone gets hurt. Like it's just really silly to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess when we're splitting hairs, okay, when you're debating between like one spot in a ranking,
Yeah,
sure, this guy has an extra ring, but it's like you're like leaving Steve Nash off your top 50 because he doesn't have a ring or whatever. That's silly.
Yeah. I see where you come from. I'm like on both sides of it. Like you play basketball to win a championship, like that's the ultimate goal, and that's why he left Cleveland to go to Miami to win a championship. So like I feel like he's speaking after the fact of winning championships. Like, oh damn, this is not as like important. Well, we have to take it into account. Like we'll use those debates to say, oh, him and MJ or like who's better, just for the GOAT debate. Like you have to take rings into account for a GOAT debate. But in terms of like talking about talented players like Barkley, Nash, we shouldn't put as much emphasis on it. But if you want to raise like in the rank of being a GOAT or one of the greatest ever, you need to win a ring, like point blank. So that's the only reason you play basketball or want to like gain like GOAT stature, I guess.
Can I ask a question?
I mean-
Can I ask a question?
All right. What?
Go ahead.
Let me ask a question. If you were to take rings out of everyone's resume and leave everything else on, does the list change at all?
For me, no.
Yeah.
It's
LeBron
a hard question, to be
honest.
honest. I think you have to think about it. What
LeBron
about
would be
other
my
people?
greatest
People
player
like,
ever. If there's no rings.
What about like Hakeem's? What about like people who are like like I know Hakeem won, but would that go up or down? Would you put someone else in front of him? Stuff like that. I know it's a kind of loaded question because you have to think about it a lot, but
It definitely changes, yeah.
People
But-
Yeah,
move.
'cause you'll
Like,
just base it
Hakeem
off of
probably
individual
goes down
skill.
if there's no rings because it's like his rings are super important because of like he did it in a time where MJ was like the king, so like his rings is valued more.
I mean, then they
But
wasn't
if you
playing one of
you
them.
know if you take those rings away, then you can argue somebody that may not have been better than like a David Robinson or something. I don't know, but like just somebody in his realm just better than him because of that.
And you just base people off like individual performance. Man, James Harden would skyrocket through like rankings if that was the case.
Definitely.
Dude,
Like,
Russell Westbrook might be top 10.
Yeah,
bro.
yeah.
Yeah, Chris Paul too. Like we like differentiate certain players because they can't win a ring, and like
Dude,
that's
DeMar
the biggest
DeRozan might be a top 50.
Dame too.
Yeah.
Kyrie, like a Kyrie won a ring, but like the 1-2 conversation never exists if you're not playing for a ring. Like,
Yeah.
For me,
what are you
like,
gonna say, Omari?
I had a couple points in my head, but one of them was like I was watching like First Things First, like Nick Wright. And he like his point. Obviously, he's a Bron stan, but his main point was like say LeBron like they win 2016, right? And then he was like KD goes to the Celtics, you know what I mean, and doesn't go to the Warriors. It's like LeBron could, he could win those rings, like, you know what I mean, but he averages the same, you know what I mean, those years, and let's say he doesn't win those rings, like his legacy is like this, but like obviously KD goes and it's like how much we got a good comment, thank you. Obviously like KD going there changes that history, you know what I mean, and it's like, oh well, that's the real history. But had he not gone there, Bron could have won more. And Dre admitted that he feels like they would have won more. You know what I mean? At the point that they were at.
Yeah.
And so it's like it doesn't really change how good LeBron is or was. You know what I mean? Because he was gonna do what he's gonna do regardless.
Yeah.
But it's like KD being there is what changes that legacy, really. You know what I mean? So it's like you're basing that ranking off of something that a whole team, you know what I mean, did. When it's like LeBron would have played the same either way. Like ring or not ring, you know what I mean? And the only thing that really changed that was the team was just so much better now instead of because when they went and got KD, you know?
Yeah, but the ultimate goal is to win the ring. That's why that's why ring culture is important, because if there's no ring or no championship, then what are you playing for?
Yeah, obviously. And it's also my other point was like you can I don't think it's hypocritical to like you can recognize that ring culture has like its toxic side, but also still like you're still obviously everyone's hooping to like win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You wanna when you're on the court, you wanna win. Like you're not playing just some people play just to get buckets, but generally if you love the game, like you're playing to win. You know what I mean?
Bradley Beal.
A lot of people in the league that like that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him. Get your money, bro. Yeah, I don't blame him, honestly.
Yeah, but it's like if you care about the game, like you want to win, but it's like he still has a point. There's still a point to be made about like the all-time rankings and whether or not like rings should play as much of a factor as they do.
I think they should.
Then again, I guess he does get hate for making it to the finals and not winning the ring, so maybe that gives him like
it's still crazy.
That is stupid. That's a different thing that should not exist.
Yeah,
that's
dumb. That's why
entirely.
That's why his opinion is what it is. Like when you have that GOAT debate and it's so like nitpicky for him and MJ, and people will say, "Oh, you don't have as many rings and you lost as many finals." Like get to the finals 8 straight times is already like.
I think
an all-time feat that will never, ever happen again. Like,
yeah, not one player's ever doing that. Ever.
Yeah.
I think he's wrong about the ring thing, by the way, but that's dumb.
Yeah, and I feel like
I think the rings matter
for those conversations, but rings definitely matter.
I think what we should take into account more is like how they perform in the playoffs and how far they get, as opposed to actually having to win. Because let's say Tyrese. Or even look at a Jimmy Butler. Like he never or may never win a ring, but his whole legacy will be remembered as overachieving and stepping up his game in the playoffs. So like, that's a situation where like ring culture can get toxic because maybe down the line, Jimmy never wins a ring. People forget how good he was, you know. But when it came down to playoffs, we all know how elite Jimmy stepped it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's also my biggest thing when it comes to Bron is that like, obviously, you know, like his like. What he did in the play, like his playoff averages and playoff performances are like, it's like not even, it's like almost incomparable. Like obviously, as Jordan's had like amazing performances, like insane ones, but it's like the leading all stats and shit like that is just like shit that's like almost like inhuman, and you still also probably won't ever see again. You know what I mean? Like you never saw it before him, and you're never gonna see it again. Like leading all stats in the finals of both teams. Like that's an insane stat that he was doing like consistently too. Like he didn't. I think it was only that 1 year that he was all 5, but he's usually like 3 or 4 of the main stats he's leading in. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then playing like 46 minutes a game, like and dumb shit. It's just like in the playoffs and like the game has the best like game winning percentage. You know what I mean? Like the game winning percentage, like. So all those buzzer beaters, all like anytime he was an underdog, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I feel like his legacy, like in the playoffs alone, is partly why like I don't always take it. Obviously, I think it's dumb to be like, oh yeah, 6 finals losses because it's hard to get to the finals, and no one will do it as many times as he did again. But
never know.
But it's also like he played like Jesus Christ himself, even in the losing efforts. You know what I mean? Like, even in the losing efforts, the nigga was averaging like 35, like damn near a 35-point triple-double. So it's just like, what can you really tell him? Like what more could he have done? Like, he has to average 40 to win. You know what I mean? That's the standard. Like,
yeah, and I feel like that conversation is only brought up when it's the GOAT debate. But if it's not a GOAT debate, everyone has him as at least a top 2 or top 3 greatest player of all time because of those things that he's done. So I feel like it's a win-lose situation or conversation.
Yeah.
What do you think,
It's
Gabe?
also like the era thing. My last point about this, I know I was going on for a minute, but my last point is like when he was talking about them bringing up Bill Russell, like, and then Jordan literally has an interview saying the same thing, like saying that I don't think that you can rate my rings against Bill Russell because we played in different eras, and that was back then when he said that. You know what I mean? And I just think that now that we have TV, now that we have social media, we can easily go back and see the 80s and 90s. It's still not as easy to go see fucking Wilt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like we can go back and see the 80s and 90s still. And so the dudes that have the nostalgia can still bask in the nostalgia. You know what I mean? And I feel like the older people don't really recognize the change, and if they do, like, they just hate, you know what I mean, they are like the people like, oh, the league sucks now, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like they don't really differentiate, or they don't really know how different the 80s and 90s were compared to now, you know what I mean? Like, it's still like a much different game, and I feel like younger people, like, when you're playing it and you're like more in tune now, you can tell. But I feel like the older people, they still see, like, obviously everyone, like, there's that debate, like, how much Jordan will average this, you know, in this era and stuff like that.
This era.
But it's like, you know, those people are the belief that, like, he's just, you know what I mean, like, it's just nothing, you know what I mean? Like, there's not gonna be no difference him just coming over here and just he's gonna cook everybody, you know what I mean? But in reality, like, the league is so different in the last 20 years to, like, you know what I mean?
Compare eras like that.
To compare. So I'm like, there's way more parity now, you know what I mean? Like, he won 6 chips, you know, like, and it's like, as time has gone on, besides Bron and Curry, well, I guess the Warriors, besides them, like, I think 4 is even going to be hard to attain now. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be hard for me to see maybe
4 is
Jokic,
4 is crazy.
like, gets a much better team, you know, and he keeps playing like this for longer, but it's in my opinion, it's going to be hard for anyone to even get to 4 now, because it's like the league is just going to continue to get better.
It's very hard to get to 3.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get to 3. So I'm like, I think that, not that the league, even though I do sometimes think the league was weak back then, it's just like, it goes to show that, like, as the league is getting better, it's harder and harder to win high numbers of chips. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's
you just
gonna
have
be
to base it off of, like, eras, players,
and it's gonna be soon. It'll be like when everyone really got 1 or 2. You know what I mean? And maybe some people got 3. You'll just never have another GOAT. You know what I mean? No matter how good somebody plays. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just.
I mean, look at Giannis now. He hasn't gotten out the first round since he won a chip.
Exactly. Like, but we know he's an all-time great.
Yeah.
And we know what Giannis would do in any era at this. You know what I mean? Like, this Giannis would do this in any era, really. But it's like, because of this, the era that he's playing in now, it's just like, there's so much talent and there's so many things that could happen. Your team could just go to shit randomly. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So that's why I don't think that it should really be as meaningful, because we've seen as eras go on, it's gonna be harder and harder to win high numbers of chips.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, we'll see. It might go back to what Jordan was, depending on the talent. But you never know.
I don't see it. Because it's just like the talent would, like, someone would have to be, like, Wemby would have to, like, just become like actual MJ, you know what I mean, and just be dominant for it to be like that much of a gap from anybody. You know what I mean?
It's possible though for him.
Even the gap between Bron, like the Bron gap, that's the high. I think Bron's peak is gonna be like the highest anyone's off of the best player, like between 1 and 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, can't say.
I don't think any one player is gonna be like dominant.
Because I can see Wemby based off just potential. Like, Wemby can be one of those guys.
That's why I use my example, because I feel like if anybody, it's gonna be that nigga. Like,